What are we doing? We are building cages in swamps and calling it policy. We are fencing in families beneath the drowning weight of Spanish moss and razor wire and telling ourselves it's justice. We're constructing holding pens for human beings under the cruel cover of patriotism while gators circle and cameras roll. The fascists of the past hid their sins behind silence. Their camps were whispered about, their horrors only fully known when the smoke had settled and the bodies were counted. But us, we're not hiding a damn thing. We're posting on Instagram. We're selling souvenir t-shirts. We're lining up outside the gates of hell in flag print board shorts, grinning for Facebook likes. We've turned suffering into spectacle. And people will die there. Not in metaphor, not in poetic exaggeration. They will die alone and terrified in the humidity of a man-made hell.
Hey everybody, welcome to Politics, Culture and Some Other Shit. Hope you're well. It's been a while, I've been very busy, but sure, we'll see how we get on. And I opened this podcast with that little monologue from a guy called Travis Matthew, who I follow on Twitter. He's a self-described husband, father, 19 Delta Combat vet. I don't even know what that means. I think that means he was in the army. Mechanical engineer, outdoorsman, hunter, liberal, Swifty. Oh, he's lost me there now. He's just Taylor Swifty. Yeah, but he's what he was referencing there. I don't know if you know, but he was talking about this. This is nuts. Don't know if you know about this. Alligator Alcatraz. Have you ever heard of this? Have you ever heard this phrase? The Donald Trump administration. So the bigot now. We'll start at the beginning. You know that the Trump administration has gone big in on being anti-migrant, etc., etc. We're going to listen to a little bit more what Travis has to say, because his little monologue there was absolutely. His 6 or 7 minutes was worth the effort. So basically, the Trump administration has reinforced the ICE organ. What are basically the immigration police in America? I'll tell you in a minute what ICE stands for. I can't exactly, just off the top of my head here. Where is it? I can't remember exactly what it stands for. Immigration control or something like that. Anyway, doesn't matter. So, the Trump administration has massively pushed this. This has been a part of their whole, we're going to close the border and we're going to get the migrants out. Now, regardless of what you think about immigration, migration, refugee status, etc., all those issues. If you're going to do this, it's going to affect your economy massively, because these people, especially in America, are doing the job. I don't want to say the jobs Americans don't want, but they're generally low-paying jobs that Americans probably couldn't financially survive on. So they've been overfunded, I would say, is the word I would use, overfunded. And they are literally going to the places where migrants are known to be, farms, outside Home Depot, which is like the big DIY store that you would get in America. When people would go there and they would get a day labourer, they would drive up and, yes, you come with me and I'll give you a day's work. Things like that. And they're gathering them up and they're sending them back to various places, and not necessarily the places that from which they came. They've got to deal with Ecuador. They've got to deal with and they're putting them in prisons in Ecuador, etc., holding centres until they can process them. Reality is, it's just another private prison boondoggle, and there'll be no processing done. These people are just doomed to, much like I would imagine, like the people that were gathered up and put in the Guantanamo Bay for a decade or two at this point, they will be forgotten. But what Travis was speaking about there was this thing called Alligator Alcatraz. What we need to know about Florida's new controversial migrant detention facility. This is an article from CNN. Deep in the marshy wetlands of the Florida Everglades, less than 50 miles west of President Donald Trump's resort in Miami, sits the latest battleground in his administration's immigration enforcement efforts. A makeshift detention facility dubbed Alligator Alcatraz. In a matter of days, workers transformed the Dade Collier Transition Airport from an 11,000-foot runway into a temporary tent city. The facility has the capacity to house up to 3,000 migrants, with the ability to add more, a Florida Division of Emergency Management officials said. Now, they're calling it Alligator Alcatraz. And you know when something like that happens, you usually find, someone in the press will call it Alligator Alcatraz. Then they'll have a press conference and a journalist will say Alligator Alcatraz. And then the government official will say, no, it's not Alligator Alcatraz. Stop calling it that. You're making it look worse than it is, etc., etc. It's the Trump administration has called it Alligator Alcatraz. It's their fucking name. And the reason that it's called Alligator Alcatraz, there aren't, as I understand it, there aren't much in a way of security provisions. So according to the Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, he says here, we had a request from the federal government to create the facility, and so Alligator Alcatraz it is. Adopting the nickname coined by his Attorney General for the Everglades facility. Clearly, from a security perspective, if someone escapes, there's a lot of alligators you're going to have to contend with. No one is going anywhere once you do that. It's as safe and secure as it can be. But while Republicans are touting it as a low-cost facility fortified by Mother Nature, the project has already sparked backlash, not only from immigration rights activists and environmentalists, but also members of the state's indigenous community, who see the project as a threat to their sacred lands. Now, this is fucking mental. So, what Ron DeSantis has said there, the governor, yeah. What he said there is, if you escape, you're going to have to deal with the alligator. That means you're going to have to deal with being ate by a fucking alligator. This is the thing that's going to keep you in your bunk. This is the thing that's going to stop you from thinking about escaping. And you know this isn't going to work because a lot of people that are actually immigrants they're economic immigrants, most of them, if not most of them, I would say. The ones that are refugees, they would be fleeing from countries where maybe their sexuality isn't exactly welcomed. They're not going back. They're not going to go back to a place where they don't feel safe. So they're going to take a chance. They're going to go for it. And if this alligator thing is as serious as they say it is, that means people are going to die. Just as Travis referenced in the video. And then there's two articles here about ICE. ICE is so Judith Levine in The Guardian, she writes, ICE is about to become the biggest police force in the US. So remember all that thing when they had defund the police? And the Democrats were all on board and they're defund the police, Black Lives Matter. Whenever they got back into power, what they did was actually created a brand new police force. So there's more police in America. I can't remember what that branch of the police is called, actually. It'll come to me. And then now the Trump administration, Trump is back in, they've made ICE, the immigration police, the biggest police force in America. On Thursday, congressional Republicans passed Trump's 1,000-page budget, which he called the Big Beautiful Bill, by the way, in typical Trumpian braggadocio. The rich will get obscenely richer and the poor will be hungrier and sicker. Work more precarious hours and the planet unrelentingly hotter. The symmetry is elegant. Cuts to healthcare and food programs average about $120 billion each year over the next decade. While the tax cuts will save households earning more than 500,000 about 120 billion a year. Literally taken from the poor to give to the rich. Trump got what he wanted, but enriching himself and his wealthy friends at the expense of everyone else has been his life purpose. It was not until he became president with the Heritage Foundation wonks, the deportation czar Stephen Miller, this is the guy that's in charge of the ICE, he's the politician in charge of that, and 6 loyal Supreme Court ears behind him, that he could reshape the US in his own amoral, racist, violence-intoxicated image. In fact, the latter goal may be dearer to him than the farmer. The former, not the farmer. So, Mehdi Hassan, writing in the Guardian as well, now this is an article from the 13th of May, ICE has become Trump's private militia, and it must be abolished. On Friday, the Democratic mayor of Newark was arrested and detained in his own city by Immigration and Customs Enforcement, that's ICE. His crime, trying to gain access and inspection rights to a privately operated detention centre that he says is in violation of multiple city lawsuits. 3 Democratic members of Congress accompanied Ras Baraka to the Delaney Hall facility in Newark as they exercised their own congressionally mandated right to enter ICE detention facilities for oversight purpose without prior notice. Now, this is in his city. He's the mayor. So Mehdi Hassan goes on to list, and it's quite the list, and it's by no means complete. Consider some of the ICE horror shows from the past 30 days alone. 8th of May, ICE agents held a young woman's face to the ground while they detained her mother in Worcester, I guess, in Massachusetts. A video of the incident from Telemundo Nueva Inglaterra shows a teenage girl screaming as multiple agents and officers chase her and grab her legs. May 7th, ICE agents detained Genzi Macchiato, a US citizen in Northern Virginia, with guns drawn, to quote the Virginia Democratic Congressman Don Beyer. Despite his attempt to show his real ID and prove his legal status, they put him in cuffs. And it's just a big list of that. People having their rights violated. Let's randomly pick another one here. 22nd of April, ICE agents in plain clothes without badges or warrants detained 2 men during a raid on a courthouse in Charlottesville, Virginia. 2 bystanders who dared to ask those agents to show them a warrant were ordered to not impede the arrest and have since been threatened with prosecution by ICE. Now, these guys are turning up. I don't know if you've seen the footage, but it's worth taking a peep. These guys are showing up, and they're not even, they're dressed like paramilitaries, right? So they've got the military garb, but they don't even show ID. They don't have, a cop has a badge number and all that sort of stuff. They don't have any of that. And they're basically just abducting people off the street. This is the charge that is being levelled at them. So it's very it would, I don't know what the word, un-American, land of the free, home of the brave, of American propaganda rather than un-American, because it's clearly very American. But this is where the Trump administration has gone. So, riding in on the back of MAGA, on the wave of the promise. First of all, the border thing, that was the promise. One of the promises. We're going to end the war in Ukraine within 24 hours. Another promise. We're going to stop the killings in Gaza, although that was said with that was said pretty much on the down low, and then it was rolled back upon multiple times, as I probably remember. But none of these things has happened, except for the chasing of the immigrants. Now, back to our friend here, Travis Matthew. He's got a little bit more to say about who these people are, and in that little bit that I read out there, he referenced a guy called Stephen Miller. This guy's very, very important. I don't know if you remember him from before, but he's a particularly odious character. He's just a slime ball, and he is clearly racist as fuck. Racist as fuck. Let's have a little listen to Travis.
They will die because we forgot how to feel compassion. And that is not opinion, that is mathematical certainty. And some of them will be American citizens, some will have protected status, some will be children, and some will be the ones that picked our crops and cooked our food and built our homes, protected under laws written in blood and memory. And they will die anyway because our paperwork was sloppy or our policy was cruel, or because someone somewhere decided their life didn't matter as much as a re-election campaign. But who has the time for the rule of law or the nuance of common sense when you've got to make sure Cletus feels like a patriot in his American by the Grace of God t-shirt, stitched together by 8-year-olds in China and sold at Walmart? We are not drifting toward authoritarianism. We are building it brick by brick, and we're doing it with full-color banners, country music, and little red hats made in sweatshops. And so the state of the union is this. We are losing our soul and pretending it's progress. Give me the migrant worker. Give me the woman who crossed the border to feed her children, who works 3 jobs and sends money home, who doesn't take your job because you won't do one. I've worked beside her, and I've worked beside Cletus, and Cletus needs 22 cigarette breaks a shift. His knees act up when it's over 85 degrees, and he insists that his doctor says he can't stand longer than 30 minutes without a lawn chair and a cold Dr. Pepper, and he's the loudest one. And if you're cheering this on, if you're hooting and hollering about migrants being eaten by alligators in a Florida wetland gulag, your only real contribution is as a mouthpiece for corporate fascism. You're not defending freedom. You're defending Stephen Miller. And Stephen Miller is not a controversial conservative. He is in both function and ideology a Nazi in modern drag. And that is not a slur. It is an indictment based on his own words, writings, and policies. This is the man that engineered family separation at the border, and not as a last resort, but as a deterrent, a punishment, a calculated cruelty. He's praised far-right European nationalists and used his position inside the White House to push white nationalist talking points directly into DHS policy. He fed xenophobia into the system like coal into a furnace, not caring what burned, only that it kept burning. And if you don't believe me, read the SPLC's archive on his own emails to Breitbart. He cites white nationalist websites, rails against immigration, and recommends racist literature as policy inspiration. And for the record, yes, he's Jewish. And yes, he's a Zionist. And yes, history has room for that contradiction. You see, fascism isn't picky about the hands that feed it, so long as the boot lands where it's aimed.
Now, just to jump in, being Zionist and racist is not a contradiction. Being Zionist means you're a racist. It's a racist ideology. It's a supremacist ideology. It's a white supremacist ideology. These people, we know what they did whenever the Ethiopian Jews moved to Israel. We know what they did to them, what they did to the women. They sterilized them. They brought them in for a medical exam, gave them an injection, and they didn't realize that the injection was a sterilizing one. They don't want black Jews in Israel. It's a racist ideology. And I've got a little thing on that. Just picked this up today. So I don't know if you know, there's a guy called Christian Smalls, I've spoke about him on this podcast before. He was a guy that organised the first Amazon workers union in, I think it's in New Jersey, in the United States, obviously. He's a very black guy, as in he looks very urban. He looks like a rapper. But this guy's super smart and super determined, super organized, and he managed to organize a union, and he did it by crossing the class. He didn't go for any. It didn't care what color you were, what your gender was, any of these distractions. It was just about class. These people are working beside each other, so they're all the fucking same when it comes to certain things. The certain things are their needs and their desires, and their need for healthcare and their need for better wages and all that sort of stuff. That's what's important, and you didn't get distracted by all the other things about, are you down with this, or are you down with that? And as a consequence, and he got sacked obviously for this, but right he's a very important figure in the American left. And here's a post from Stephen Donziger, who is a civil rights lawyer who successfully sued Chevron for a massive oil spill in the Amazon basin, and for which he got privately jailed, basically, in New York. But he's free now, thank God. And he says, my friend Chris Smalls was the only black man among the 20 activists on the Gaza Freedom Flotilla, which is happening right now. He also appears to be the only passenger beaten, kicked, and violently assaulted by Israeli security forces after those in the boat were illegally abducted in the Mediterranean before they could deliver life-saving humanitarian aid to the starving children in Gaza. The flotilla press office reported that 7 soldiers choked Chris and kicked him, leaving visible signs of violence on his neck and back. I demand the Israeli government keep its hands off Chris, release Chris, etc., etc. So he's been detained, abducted, in other words, that is kidnapped, and he was the only one of the 7 activists that was beaten. Now, why was he the only one beaten? Because he's black. Zionists are racist. That's just the way it is. It's just, so there is no contradiction. So back to our little video.
And when nationalism becomes ethnic supremacy, the difference between Zionism and Nazism is only where the barrel's pointed. So to the do your own research crowd, what the hell were you researching? Because Stephen Miller and Peter Navarro slid right past you. And if you'd have told me 15 years ago that Stephen fucking Miller would be writing American policy, I would have wept or walked into the goddamn ocean. His history of white nationalism and racist rhetoric is well documented, published in public. ICE behaving like the Gestapo is not an accident. It is the design. He studied Goebbels. He romanticized control. He gets off on the optics of this shit. You are not witnessing the echoes of history. You are watching its reanimation. And if Stephen Miller reads this, he'll smile. Not out of vanity, but out of victory. Because the optics of cruelty are the point. Because control is the end game. Because power over the powerless makes him feel divine. And he's not ashamed of it. He's proud of it, I promise you. And through all of this, your children are dying from flooding in Texas, from heat in Arizona, from poverty in West Virginia, from fentanyl in Ohio. Dying so some son of a bitch can get another tax break on putting his 4th house in a trust fund. They tell you not to make it partisan when Texas drowns or when wildfires take whole families out west. Don't politicize the tragedy, they say. But it's not partisan, it's human. And if you're not moved by it, if you don't weep for these people, it's not because you're a Republican, it's because you're morally hollow. You are spiritually bankrupt because empathy left your body the moment Fox News told you it was weakness. And I say lack of moral fiber because I like the rhythm of the phrase, but what I mean is devoid of it. And if you think I'm wrong, look your child in the eye and put a dollar amount on them. What are they worth in American currency? And you can't, but this administration has, Congress has, and it's just under $109,000. Not enough to buy a house, not enough for a lifetime of health care, just enough to justify a press release on budget reform. They've penciled it out in a margin somewhere next to campaign donations and fossil fuel subsidies. And since you can't put a price on your own, understand that mine are just as priceless to me. And that's the universal currency. It's the exchange rate of human decency. They've convinced you that you matter to them, and you do until you don't. Until your insurance lapses, until your job is automated, until your house floods, or your kid overdoses. Then you are not a voter, you are a statistic. And if you can't see that you've been discarded, that they don't care about you anymore, then you are either deliberately blind or quietly complicit. Pick your poison. And I say this to every single soul still wading through this toxic sewage of faux conservatism. Whether I know you or love you or once thought you were better than you are either a fool or a Pharisee. And if you choose this path, this bile-soaked nationalism, then you have made your choice. You've nailed your flag to the mast of cruelty, and don't pretend it's about policy, because we can argue policy. We can argue over tax rates and the Constitution. That's the democratic process. But the availability of civil liberties and human rights are never up for debate. That is not conservative versus liberal. That is human versus inhuman. And if you think those rights only apply to people that look like you, speak your language, or share your religion, then the devil waits for you and he delights in it. You are not the hero of this story. You are the fucking guardrail on the road to hell, and the rest of us are just trying to slow the car down before we lose everything and everyone we love. Defiance till death.
Ooh. That's not Travis Matthew. This is a guy called Captain Kirk, believe it or not. CaptainKirk.db. Either way, great speak. Love that. Um, and this is the thing. We're watching. It's important that we're anti-colonialists. That's a part of who we are, and what it's important that we keep that at the front of our thinking. We as Irish people, we know what this means. We have a very real, tangible experience of this within our own lifetimes. And we're watching, one of the things that gives me great joy is watching our young people coming up who aren't, or post-troubles babies, and they never knew that, but they know about the history of it, and with the confidence and uh, with confidence and righteousness, they're just saying, fuck off, we're not having this, we don't want this, and they can call it out fearlessly, because people of my generation, we still carry, I know I do, I carry that in me. I don't, sometimes I'd be very sort of nervous maybe about a little Irishy culture-y thing that I have on my partner, maybe a GAA top or something like that, or going through certain... Kids don't give a fuck. They're out there, man. And that anti-colonialism is a part of their DNA. It's a part of ours too, but it's a part of their DNA that they never felt the foot on their neck. We did, and they're not having it. And hopefully they'll never have to feel it, and I think it's fantastic. But we must remember that our Western, I again doing air quotes when I say Western, our Western mindset is one of it relies on racism to exist. It needs racism to exist in order for it to exist. So first of all, when we read the history books, we get told that we went to Africa, and we went to, we as a, not me and you, we the other we, to save people from barbarism. These barbarians, and we were that. We Irish people, we were those barbarians. But we know it's not true. But that's what we get told. And we got told it for long enough that maybe we started to fucking believe it. Maybe we just sort of didn't take it too bad, But the young ones coming through now, they don't give a shit. They're not having it, and I think it's fantastic. But this racism is essential for the project. They rely on it. They need the racism to exist. And the reason they want the racism to exist is so they can steal the stuff. It's about resources. And this is whenever it comes back to us in our place, that we have to understand that when we're watching racism rear its head in Ireland for seemingly the first time that we've in our lives, I can't believe the things that I'm seeing in this country. I'm sure you're exactly the same. We need to understand that for us, it's about resources. So what's our resource? The resources that we have that's causing 70% of the last time that there was a flare-up of these racist protests in Ireland, 70% of all internet traffic talking about it and encouraging it came from the United States. So they come from troll farms and things like that, as well as individuals who are probably caught up in it. And if you follow Irish America, you'll see their idea of what Ireland is. It's very much fucking Darby O'Gill and the little people. It's it's the quiet man. That's what they fucking think. And so they think that there shouldn't be brown people here. But when it comes to the resources, it's the resources of the working class are what? School places and housing, jobs, healthcare. That's it. And those things are under pressure. They're under serious pressure. And whenever you put migrants into working class communities that is finding itself in a position where their children can't find somewhere to live, and then you put people from other countries into those communities, so that's where they're directed whenever they come to this country, well, then that community is going to rise up or crack up. But who are they cracking up against? They're cracking up against the migrant or the immigrant or the refugee. It's not their fault. Should be rising up against the government. Why are you not building more social housing? Why are you allowing international vulture funds to buy up all the housing stock on the market, so that whenever my daughter and my son-in-law get married and have a child and they want to go and buy a place of their own, they can't, and they end up paying more for rent than they would for a mortgage if they had been allowed to buy the house in the first instance? That's not somebody's fault that's come here from another country for a better life, even if it is an economic, if they're migrating here for economic reasons. That's a legitimate reason. And Ireland has done that for hundreds of years. That's what we've done. We did that for the same reason that they might be doing it. We got forced into it. Give yourself, you have to go. If you don't go, you're going to fucking live here in poverty until you die young. Then there's the other migrant, the refugee. The refugee coming from Africa or the Middle East. And you look at what the West has done to those regions just over the past 20 years, never mind the past 600, 400 years. Just look at the last 20 years. I played you a video clip just a couple of weeks ago from that American colonel listing all the countries that they decided in the early 2000s that they were going to overthrow, that they were going to destroy, they were going to turn them into ash. And it's in order to what? Steal their resources. That's what it's all about. It's all about resources. And then we see our people teaming up with racists in order to protest these migrants. And again, I've said this 1,000 fucking times. Syria, for example, is an ancient civilization, one of the cradles of humanity. They have got artworks and fantastic cities going back 1,000 years, more, thousands of years. They're invented sciences, algebra. That's all, algebra, from which the word algorithm, of which none of our computers would work without it, was all invented in the Middle East. Syria has this civilization going back thousands of years. Nobody living in Syria, this Mediterranean paradise, wants to fucking come here. And okay, Bashir al-Assad, he was a dictator. You wouldn't want to live there. No, I don't want to live there. I want to live here. But those people want to live there too. And if they wanted to get rid of him, that was up to them to do, regardless of what you think of Bashir al-Assad. And if you think our governments went in there because they were concerned about how Bashir al-Assad treated his people, and his father before him treated his people, and the atrocities that they no doubt did commit, but they didn't commit certain things that they were accused of. Bashir al-Assad at the end, all that gassing his own people, that was all fucking nonsense. But if you think our governments went in there and the thing to do to save them was to bomb their fucking country, annex off the top 1/3, which has the oil and the wheat, force an almost fucking famine on who? On the people, by the way, that you're claiming to care about. Then allow Al-Qaeda to go into the country, take it over. Al-Jilani, who was the leader of Al-Qaeda, is now the fucking president of Syria, what's left of Syria, because now Israel has expanded its territory and is actually bombing Damascus. Uh, Israel is expanding its own territory to fulfill its promise of the Greater Israel Project, which the Zionists said doesn't exist. But we know it fucking does, because it's all being played out in front of our eyes. And because they said it doesn't exist, we know that it fucking does, because they're liars. Then, when those people, they got the Israelis bombing them on one side, after being bombed by the Yanks for fucking God knows how long, years, their country gets choked until it basically can't exist anymore. Then you replace the government with Al Qaeda. And I've seen the footage I've seen the footage of them just shooting people dead in the street. I've seen it. And they do it in the most casual way. It's fucking horrifying. Don't even make a big deal out of it. They're just bloodthirsty murderers. And by the way, just on a side note, isn't it always interesting that Al Qaeda, ISIS, and ISIL, what's the country they've never attacked? Fucking Israel. They've never attacked Israel. They've attacked Syria, Libya, Iran, Iraq. They've done attacks in Russia. They've done attacks in England, even. Attacks in Afghanistan, obviously. They've never attacked Israel. Do you not find that curious? I do. I find that curious, and I am suggesting that these organisations are institutions supported by the Zionist entity and the CIA, and the rest of them, etc. So that's just straight off my point. My point was then, after all this carnage, these people then find themselves on a fucking boat, risking their lives by themselves or with their families, paying money to people smugglers to get brought to Europe, and then some of them find their way across to Ireland by hook or by crook. And then they get here and they get accused. They're automatically rapists just because they fucking exist and they're brown and they're not from here. Despite the fact that all the people getting killed around here, all the women getting killed around here, are all being killed by white men. But that's, that little nugget gets conveniently overlooked. Constantly conveniently overlooked. And then they find themselves being protested, burnt out of refugee and immigration centres. New housing development in Mayo was being it wasn't a new housing development. A strip of housing was being refurbished for some immigrants in Mayo just last week, and it got burnt out before anyone could get moved into it. And we find ourselves in a situation where Irish patriots, again air quotes, are teaming up with loyalists. So let me read this article. This is from Dublin Communities Against Racism. I found this on Instagram. Irish racists and loyalist terror supporters exposed. The 12th of July is traditionally the time when we see hate-filled culture of Ulster loyalism and extreme unionism at its rawest. It's very true that. You do notice that when you live up here. These fuckers tend to really get up themselves a lot. Dublin Communities Against Racism takes this opportunity to highlight the links between these anti-Irish bigots and the fake patriot racists. In 1972, loyalists came to Dublin, detonated bombs at Eden Quay and Sackville Place, which killed 2 people. In 1974, loyalists came to Dublin and detonated bombs at Talbot Street, Purnell Street and South Leinster Street. Along with an explosion in Monaghan on the same day, they killed 33 people. In 1994, loyalists came to Dublin and shot dead Martin Doherty on Pierce Street as he prevented them from committing a mass murder by detonating a bomb at the Widow Scanlon's pub. Scores, if not hundreds, could have died here if they succeeded in their goal. All these attacks were timed and located to target working class Dubliners, In 24 and 25, loyalists in 2024 and 2025, loyalists came to Dublin, this time invited and welcomed by racists and anti-immigrant campaigners. How times have changed, and shockingly so. Irish racists have long worked closely with the loyalist terror supporters and extreme unionist and British fascist figures going as far back as the 1930s. What all of their friends have in common is that they are violently anti-Irish and always have been. This is anti-Irish and sectarian hatred. This anti-Irish and sectarian hatred has not gone away, but is conveniently covered up to unite and target asylum seekers, immigrants, and other foreign-looking people. Their anti-Irish hatred is not far beneath the surface. It's not even beneath the surface. If you, like me, of a certain age, you could spot these fuckers a mile away. All the stuff, the British National Front and the Britain First crowd and the Nigel Farage and Reform and all that. These people hate us. They always fucking have. They've been used by the British establishment since day dot. That's what the Orange Order was. Literally, that's what it was. It was this thuggery that was weaponized and activated to keep us on our fucking knees. And that Irish people, men and women, are teaming up with these fuckers is staggering. And all the anti-racist campaigners across Ireland are all, I mean, I've been to these protests. I went to that one in Dundalk last year with my People Before Profit comrades. And all of them, everyone is stunned who they're calling their friends and their partners. Because their friends and their partners and the people that they're finding comfort and solace with and in fucking hate them. But I don't know if they're too dumb to even fucking figure it out. But anyway, back to the article. This week, we saw racists in the 26 counties cheer on loyalists who placed an effigy of a migrant boat on top of a bonfire. They were remarkably quiet when tricolours were added to the pile for the burning. Just weeks ago, 26 county racists were supporting the racist violence in Ballymena. Horrific actions, no different than decades of pogroms against Catholic and nationalist communities. All of the loyalist atrocities mentioned above has something in common. It has now been proven beyond any shadow of doubt that all these murder sprees were carried out under the control of British military intelligence. The loyalist murder gangs responsible for these, along with the countless other activities, including the Malmy Showband massacre, were created by, armed by, sheltered by, and totally directed by the intelligence services. Why should we presume this has changed? We should be consistently asking ourselves why they are so interested in working with their traditional enemies in the 26 counties and the 6 county nationalist areas. What purpose does this cooperation serve? And more importantly, who does it serve? Who is pulling their strings? Loyalist figures, terrorist supporters and extreme unionists have worked closely with 26 county racists and have shared space at events in Belfast, Limerick, Cork and on many occasions in Dublin in recent weeks. Some anti-immigrant and racist right figures have issued statements claiming to disassociate themselves from loyalist figures. We do not accept this as genuine. This response is only due to the backlash created by the exposure and the highlighting of these links. It reminds me right now of the backpedaling you can see in the mainstream media and across the political landscape of the people who have been cheering on the Zionists in Gaza and Palestine and Lebanon and everywhere else that they're fucking bombing. You're starting to see them rolling back now. Even shocking headlines in the Daily Express and the Daily Mail, these right-wing fascist newspapers. I mean, with really shocking headlines, like showing starving children that look like something you would have seen in the 1980s in Ethiopia and other places in Africa, where there was proper famine. This is what this is. It's exactly the same thing. They're starting to roll it back because they don't want to be associated with it. Why is it acceptable last year or a few months ago, but not now? This is purely an attempt to deflect negative publicity and the growing awareness by its working class people who feel cheated by these leaders. Dublin City councillors Malachy Steenson and Gavin Pepper were happy to introduce Ulster Unionist Jim Ferguson on the platform at the Custom House last year and be photographed on a protest with them. They took part in rallies in which the presence of UVF terrorist and British state agent Mark Sinclair and others was noted, but they did not comment or condemn until the pressure became too much. The same accusation of hypocrisy applies to Councillor Patrick Quillen of the openly fascist Nationalist Party, who joined Steenson and Pepper on stage at the most recent city centre rally. We believe their fake statements are a result of the negative publicity, but also clear evidence of infighting and the power struggle for leadership within the racist right movement. And according to a Dublin City Against Racism spokesperson, there is a very justified anger against the government in our working class. This is what I said, right? That now this is the point. There's a very justified anger against the government in our working class communities. Unfortunately, there's been a very successful attempt by the politically motivated racist right to misdirect this anger towards immigrants and away from those responsible. This will solve none of our problems and is only serving the interests of the government. The hypocrisy of those waving tricolours, calling themselves patriots, has been exposed. Their links with loyalists, extreme unionists and British intelligence assets should be a wake-up call for anyone who has so far fallen for their lies. They are anti-Irish, anti-working class and are providing a service to the Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael government. And that's pretty much that. It's staggering, and we cannot fucking forget that this is all rooted in racism, and they weaponize racism so that they can use us against them so that we can steal their stuff. That's all this is. And to bring it up to date, let me just get this little article here. So one of the countries that we destroyed, I say we the way, when I'm talking about we, I sort of have, I carry a collective guilt, I think, because I'm white and I'm from the West. I don't mean we and you and me. I mean Western civilization, another air quote phrase that I despise. As I keep saying, when Gandhi was asked, what do you think of Western civilization? He says, I think it would be a good idea. If you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you know that I'm actually quite happy. I would say that I was early in on this, but Burkina Faso's leader, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, he's a leader that is trying to liberate his country from Western colonialism. And a country, their colonist was France. And have you ever seen the pictures of Emmanuel Macron sitting in the French bank on piles of gold that were mined from West Africa, despite the fact that France doesn't have any gold mines in it, but that's where it got its gold from. And Ibrahim Traoré has kicked the French out, and he's kicked all the imperialists out, and he's the companies of the West that work there, that do their business, get their raw materials from there, are being forced to work in a more equitable way, or they're being shipped out. So this is a small article. I'm not going to read it all. Well, it's a big article. I'm not going to read it all. Just highlights of it. Charismatic 37-year-old Burkina Faso's military ruler, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, has skillfully built on the persona of a pan-Africanist leader, determined to free his nation from what he regards as the clutches of Western imperialism. His message has resonated across Africa and beyond, with his admirers seeing him as following in the footsteps of African heroes like Burkina Faso's very own Thomas Sankara. the Marxist revolutionary who is sometimes referred to as Africa's Che Guevara. Now, after seizing power in a coup in 22, Traoré's regime ditched the former colonial power France in favour of a strong alliance with Russia and China, by the way, that has included the deployment of a Russian paramilitary brigade and adopted left-wing economic policies. Now, the paramilitary brigade, there are Russian troops in Burkina Faso, but they are there at the invite of his government and him. And one of the reasons that they're there is because they've tried, he's survived something like 20 plus assassination attempts. So they basically sent a bodyguard down. And again, Russia's interest is economic. It's about resources. But this is about the difference between the sharing of resources or the a more equitable distribution of resources. Because the Western idea of working with an African country is to completely fucking exploit the resources, keep the people impoverished, and enrich themselves to Midasian standards. Well, this guy's come along and he's went, we're not having no more of this. Now, one of the things that I noticed this week was Donald Trump mentioned Traoré in a speech that he gave, a ramble that he gave at a press conference in Scotland just the other day, because he was in Scotland, and before he met with Princess Ursula von der Leyen, and he mentioned Traoré. Now, it's sort of very worrying, because you can be guaranteed he's being set up just as Gaddafi was set up in Libya. The same thing. Traoré is talking about breaking away from the dollar standard, using gold as a resource-based currency. He's talking about uniting Africa. And by the way, this is the thing that these younger politicians are coming up. Africa's poor, but it's not without resources. It's got all the resources it needs to not be poor, but it is poor, and the West is rich. We know why that is. And I've heard these guys talk, and they talk about their national sense of self-identity very much in the way that I think we are. We previously were repressed until we maybe started to believe the propaganda that we've been absorbing for hundreds of years. I think that's what's going on with these guys, and they're having enough of it, or they've had enough of it. Now, he's been targeted already, and he's going to be targeted even further. And he's trying to get Africa to unite in a single currency. That's alongside what's happening with the BRICS countries, the Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and then all the other countries that have joined the BRICS organization. China has now openly stated that they are they're now working towards another currency which is resource based and not based on the dollar. So the resource base is going to be gold. It's a gold based currency. They've organised a SIP system, which is an alternative to the SWIFT system, the international banking system that the West has set up, that runs out of Brussels. I think it runs out of Brussels. The SIPS is the Chinese version of it. It's being built, and it's being built on blockchain, which is the same thing as Bitcoin, which means it's more stable. The SWIFT system is very analog, very of the old world, and it's not very modern. It's not fast enough for modern needs. The SIP system is. So all these alternatives are being built and worked on, and they're all being built and worked on for one reason and one reason only. America has weaponized the dollar. So they weaponized it by using it to place sanctions on people, put economic blockades around a country. Now, A blockade is the same as whenever you literally put an army around a city, which was a tactic of warfare from the Middle Ages. It was made illegal in the 20th century. You weren't allowed to do that because it basically enforced a famine on the people. Interestingly enough, doesn't seem to apply to Israel, who are doing just that today. But regardless, so America has been weaponizing the dollar, the world's global standard currency. Any country in the world you can go to, and you have it, put down an American dollar, it's a useful currency. You could use it. But because they overplayed it, they overused their ability to sanction people, they gave the rest of the world no alternative but to find an alternative. It was always going to happen. And now America is scrambling. China is has been ditching its bonds over the past decade. And now they've openly stated, despite stating in the past that they weren't working on an alternative to the dollar, they've openly stated now just this past couple of weeks that they are. That's what they're working towards, and there's absolutely no reason to think that they won't get it. Burkina Faso have much as the same thing. This is the same thing that Colonel Gaddafi wanted to do. Was organise an African dinar. It was called the African dinar, which was based on gold, because that's what the fucking gold is. Most of it, anyway. So they can do that, and for that he got killed. And make no mistake, that's why he got killed. All the Mad Dog Gaddafi propaganda that we all had to absorb when we were younger, and it makes you kind of fucking sick a wee bit that you believed all this, because I did. I fell for it. Most of us did. And it's only in this new modern age of internet freedom that we get this information. And by the way, the British government have just introduced a new piece of legislation where you have to prove your ID if you want to go to websites. If you want to go and look at porn, for example, you have to prove your ID, prove who you are. You do it digitally. Scan a passport or driving license or something like that. Or you can scan your face and all this sort of thing. It's also to stop young people going to sites where there's talk about self-harm, encouraging people to do these things or showing them how to do these things. I guess that's what it must be. This is bollocks. It's not for that. They're going to start shutting down the stuff that we're seeing coming out of Gaza. The atrocities, the dead bodies, the children, the little boy the other day with his arm blowing off and the shoulder wound pumping blood and him screaming in terror after surviving. Well, he didn't survive, he died. A bombing while they were queuing for food. That's what this is about. It's about shutting that down. We can't see that. It's going to be declared something that falls within that bracket. And this is why free speech is so important. I get it. There are people out there that are vile and horrible, and you don't want to hear what they want. You just have to suck it up. Just don't listen to them. Because of the government, it's okay as saying we're going to protect people. Who's deciding? Who's making the decision on what's good and bad? The government. The government are from the day this shit started in Israel have been providing spying information from their flights, from their spy planes to the Israelis via the Yanks. They sent it to the Yanks, and then the Yanks sent it on to the Israelis. They know what's happening. It doesn't make any difference. They're complicit. Israeli soldiers and officers have been getting training in England, in Britain, from the day this started. They're complicit. And you're going to let them tell you what you can and can't watch, what you can and can't listen to, the speech that you can and cannot hear, the images that you can and cannot see? I don't think so. Anyway. There we go. So listen, I think I'm going to call it there. About this, I want to talk to you a little bit about what's coming up with the band and all the rest of it. So we're going to do that now. Give me a second. Right. So we went to Germany and we launched our new album, Age of Monsters, on the 12th of July, which was cool, at Red Oak Fest in Germany. One of our favourite places to be, and we had such a great time. It was brilliant. But it really sort of felt a wee bit. I didn't know what to do, about gigging again and touring again, and I just didn't know, because it's a big, it's hard, but rewarding, and I don't want to complain, but basically what I mean to say is, it gave me a little bit of a boost that I needed, I think, because I was feeling a bit down about the whole thing. I have been this past couple of years, about whether I wanted to get back out on the road or not. And playing that show at that festival, I mean, I knew I would enjoy it anyway. We've played there. I think we played there 6 times now. I can't remember, but we yeah, we loved it. We had a great time. I had a great time. We all had a great time. It was me and Chris and Janie, my wife, and my mate Richie. He came over, and the four of us went over there, and we just had the best 3 days. It was wonderful, and it it made me just sort of rethink a few things and getting back out on the road again. And then coming back after we had sent out all the albums, and the album was officially launched on the 12th, but really we've been sending stuff out from the beginning of June. Excuse me. And hearing people coming back with their positive reviews was just wonderful. It kind of blew me away a wee bit, actually. And very much very much of people are very much of the opinion that this is our best album yet, and which is great to hear. It's always great to hear that you've done something good, but that it's our best album yet is interesting to me. Yeah, it is mad, because going into this album, I didn't know if this wasn't going to be our last, because that's kind of where I was mentally. I didn't know, but it felt like I owed the band and Chris and myself and everything and you guys one more record. So I kind of went in with the fuck it sort of attitude, and I'm just gonna just be free in the moment and just express myself, and I think it worked out. I wasn't under any pressure. Not that maybe it was in the past. I don't know, but it wasn't this time. And yeah, it worked out great, and the album's been going great guns, and it's made me kind of sort of want to get back on the bike again and go again. So we've got a UK tour coming the end of August, but we're organising a German tour now for March, and we're going to be doing another going back to Europe again in the summer. The United States, we'd love to go back to. I'd really love to go to America again. I really would, to be honest. But the state of politics over there, I don't know if I'd get in, because they ask you on the form, like, when you apply for a work permit and stuff, they ask you on the form, are you a member of any socialist and communist parties and all that, and I am. So it's all, and then the band, we are long time advocates of the Palestinian cause, and going back many years. So, I don't know if that's going to affect us. And there's a chance then that you could put all the money out for, booking flights and everything else. And then you get over there and you find, or you go there, you leave from Dublin and you find that you're not allowed on the plane, which very much could happen. So we're kind of, I'd love to go to America again, but I just don't know if it's possible. But yeah, but we're going to do the rest. So we're going to play more gigs. I'm going to play more, do more tours, and take another run at this. See how we get on. Uh, but the next one we have is the our album launch in the Limelight. Now, something very interesting has happened with the Limelight, and I hope this works out. I'm going to tell you about it. Now we've played. I think it's going to be okay, but we played the Limelight more than any other venue we've ever played. Like, we've done 3 albums. This is our 3rd album launch there. We filmed a music video there. We've done a small documentary there. We've played there, I don't know how many times over the years. We supported Sleaford Mods there, things like that, and we love the place, and they've always been very good to us. I mean, I'm not complaining about them, but we booked this gig, and we just found it. Well, we didn't whenever, so we agreed to the gig. We contacted them and they said, "Listen, there's a date there. Do you fancy that?" And we said, "Yes, that'll be great." That's August the 8th, by the way, and that was fine. So we announced it, and then tickets went up for sale, and Then we get an email with a few details on it, and I don't really go for the details. I don't read emails like that, but Chris does. He's very diligent that way, and one of the clauses in the email was something about basically saying that they're going to take a percentage of our merch and they're going to sell our merch, and that we're going to use their point of sales, the credit card reader and all that. And I was like, no, that doesn't apply to us. That can't. I mean, that's bollocks. That's just for big bands. You know what I mean? But no, it turns out that it's not. And we got an email just last week from their merchandise manager, who knew there was such a thing, basically reiterating some of the points that was in the original email. So we've contacted them and said, listen, we can't do this. We're not doing this, and we don't know what it means, or if we got a message back, and we're very hopeful. We think we're going to be fine. We think we're going to be able to take care of our own merchandise. But basically, if we had have known, we wouldn't have booked the gig. We'd have went somewhere else. We went to Mandela or the Black Box. We'd have gone anywhere. We're not letting people sell our merch. We can't. It's just morally, we just can't do it. We get creamed everywhere we go. We get fucking Spotify kill us. We may as well not be getting paid from them because of the remuneration policies. Is bands like us, just we may as well not bother. And it's kind of, it's doubly insidious for us, because whenever we always pushed merch, we always had merch. When other bands didn't do it, we always did it. I'm not saying that we were gatekeeper or torch carriers, torch bearers for this stuff, but we kind of were. We always manned the merch stall. We always had merch, because it was always a thing. One of the inspirations for me when I started the Bonnevilles was watching American bands at our level coming through Belfast, and I would go and see them, bands like the Bonnevilles and the Sights and all these early Detroit garage bands. Morton Lee County Killers, Perline, all these, whatever, and they always had merch, and they always manned the merch stall. The band was on the merch stall, and I loved that. That really impressed me, because we were embarrassed to ask for money, and we were almost embarrassed by it. The idea of selling something. There was, and but that always impressed me. So right from the very start, from we began, we always had merch. I think the first gig money I got from the Bonnevilles, I went and got T-shirts printed with it. So and then the second gig, there was T-shirts on the merch. Only 10, that's all I could afford. And so things like that. And we kept the merch going. And as a consequence, we built up a significant amount of our business. In fact, a very significant amount of our business comes from the merch that we have, built up over years. Most of our albums are still in print. We've got 2, 3 different types of T-shirts and things like that. And you don't just you can't just go and do that overnight. You can't just go and spend 30 grand on that. You've got to build that up. So we've got that, and we invest that money back into the merch. You know what I mean? So as a consequence, we've got this, and then this new album, it's on our own label in partnership with Vestig Yard Records, of course. But that's we paid for that ourselves, and we still haven't made. We've made our money back. We're now into the phase of we're breaking even now. We've broke even, and now going forward, we're looking at making a bit of profit. And one of those big profit making opportunities is going to come from our album launch. So the thought of giving, we've got an option. We either take it on the nose and just the Shine is the organisation that run the Limelight. They take 20% off us. I guess. I think it's about 20%. I'm not sure. I could be wrong about that. Please don't quote me. But let's say we'll split the difference. Let's say it's 10. They take 10% off the band, or we add 10% on and charge you. Well, we can't do that. We're not going to do that. So we don't really have too many options. We're thinking about some sort of a pop-up shop just around the corner. But that's, although would be fine, it's not ideal. Ideally, and I don't even know if we're going to be able to do that. I don't know if there's even an option for us to do that. And it's getting very late in the day. Another option is I just give Shane a lump sum, start going, here you go, take this amount of money and fuck off and leave us alone. And then after that, we wouldn't set foot in the place. I would be boycotting it for the rest of my life because I think it's disgusting, to be perfectly honest. And I know that running a venue isn't easy these days. I do know that. I understand that venues are closing all over the fucking place. But my God, neither try being in a fucking band. It's just that thing. Everybody's middleman you out of the game. It's just that modern capitalist thing where you put in a toll booth. That's what it is. It's a parking space. You want to park your car, you got to pay a parking, and it makes more per hour than the minimum wage. That company didn't build the fucking space. It was there already, and they just council give it to them, and they go and steal money from people. It's just putting a toll booth on a motorway. They didn't build the fucking motorway. They just operate a toll booth on it and make money for nothing. So that's kind of what that is. So it sickens me from various angles. But I am hopeful. I swear to God, I'm genuine. I think they're going to be fine. Joe, who runs the place, has been brilliant to us over the years, and I have no complaints at all. This has just come out of the blue, and I hope that we're going to be able to work around it. I don't, and again, morally, I don't think venues should be taking money from bands' merch, be it a big venue or a small venue. I think it's fucking disgusting. And I know that the ticket sales are good. I know there's a lot of, I've seen the numbers. We're good. Everybody's making money. It's not like it's touch and go or everybody's getting paid. The Bonnevilles fans are fucking drinkers. They're all going to come in there and there's going to be a queue at the bar. Get some extra staff in, Joe. You're going to need them. Things like that. So you don't need to be taking money from bands merch. Certainly our band's merch. And then you're kicking us all out at 10 o'clock and you're putting in a club night and it's a Friday night. So I know business people, bottom line and all the rest of it. We're the same. We're in the same position. But morally, I can't be doing things like that either. But yeah, so the next gig is August the 8th, which is Friday week. I've got a couple of special guests joining us on stage. We're going to be playing like 6 or 7 tracks from the new album. Originally, I thought it was only like we're only going to play 2 or 3, But then I sort of mentioned that, and then a lot of people commented and said, no, we want to play a lot. So we're going to have Laura Kerr on fiddle, and Joseph Toman is going to be joining us on keys. We're going to be playing a few 6 or 7 tracks from the album, so it's going to be a lot of fun. And yeah, and then we go on a UK tour. So there we go. And I'm looking forward to it. We're going to get to see a lot of our old friends. We're going to be driving up and down England and Scotland. We don't make it into Wales often enough, sadly. But yeah, so there we go. That's what's happening. And we've got, as again, August the 8th, we advert for the gig. You should come and see us. We're very good, you know. We're not too bad. And the new album has been going great guns. I'm so happy, so fucking happy. It's been fantastic. The feedback we've been getting from you guys has been unreal. So yeah, thank you everybody that bought it, everyone that's sharing it. We've got a few good articles, good reviews, all that sort of stuff. We'll be putting it into a few shops, but not too many. Told you about that before. We don't get fucking paid whenever we do that often, so you know. Baby needs new shoes and all that shit. Anyway, that's it. Thanks everybody for listening. Please like and share, subscribe, do all that stuff. And we'll catch you on the flip side of this thing.